Hello and welcome to today's bi-weekly community call. My name is Ugur, most of you probably know me, and I have Burak from API3 with me here today, and Alex and Luca from Aragon. Just to give you a bit of a context what today's call is going to be about, I'm going to give Alex and Luca the chance to first of all present themselves and also their project. Also going to give Burak a chance to present API3, and then we're basically going to be going over 3 topics that connect us. As most of you know, that API3 is an Aragon-based DAO. So we're going to be talking about optimistic governance, why DAOs haven't really taken off yet, and then finally we're going to be talking about sub-DAOs or inter-DAOs and basically fractal scaling. Towards this session, you are free to ask us anything you'd like if there's any specific question that comes up, just feel free to shoot us a message and we'll pick it up along the way. So, with that being said, I want to give the stage to Alex and Luca from Aragon. So, feel free to present yourselves and what you're working on.
Hey guys, hey everyone, thanks so much API3 for having us. It's really good to be here, especially just being the last week talking more and more with the API3 team, and it's really amazing what you guys are building, and really excited to know first of all that the Aragon DAO that you guys have launched is working fine, and we can improve from there. So I'm Luca, I'm running marketing and growth at Aragon, and I'll let Alex present himself as well.
Yeah, second everything that Luca's already said. But yeah, I'm Alex. I run transparency for the Aragon project, and also work on ops, and also helping run the DAO Global Hackathon that's coming up as well, which some people may have seen. So yeah, it's a bit about me.
Cool. Do you guys want to dive into what Aragon has been up to in the I want to say last couple of weeks? What is in the pipeline? Because I have been seeing some news and I just want to bring it to the audience, basically.
Yeah, 100%. So as with everything in Web3, the space is moving quite fast, and weeks feels like years. So this year definitely has felt like a decade already, and we're not done yet. So a lot has been happening. I mean, just to give a brief history, we kind of I've been scaling really the Aragon team to focus more and more on kind of user-led product. So on our side, we've done a lot of user research this summer, and just kind of talking to the DAOs, to the DAO creators, to the DAO members, understanding their needs, what's happening in the space, why are people taking certain directions, why are certain decisions taken more than others, why are certain tools used more than others. And so with that, on the 17th of August, we've launched Aragon Govern on Mainnet. Together with that, kind of refurbished Aragon Court. It's a dispute resolution system for the ones that are not familiar with it. And so Govern and Court are kind of like an experimental or a newer or a more lightweight version of the traditional Aragon client. So with Aragon clients, you have full customization. It's still available today. You can use it and using different governance templates. It can go in different direction. It works on Polygon. We'll talk about that in a second. And it's still out there. You can use it. With Govern, think of it as a more kind of lightweight DAO deployment solution. It's called optimistic governance because it allows you to run your governance optimistically because all execution passed by default unless disputed during a delay period. So we think, just from also the feedback that we've heard, that a lot of DAOs need to really take decision faster, and a lot of things are just kind of routine transactions. And yeah, to make that just even faster, it was just a meaningful way to bring Govern in and resolve for that. Ideally, also maybe to close on this, to give everybody a little bit of an overview, a lot of this products feel like features, and we would like to kind of bring a more meaningful harmony to all of the products so that you have one way to think of your DAO and use optimistic governance as a parameter rather than just like a different product. But for now, it's good to have them silent as well in order to make sure that everything works in its environment.
Great. Does Alex have anything to add on that part, or?
No, not on that part. I think that was a very good update of the last few weeks alone.
Good. Then I want to extend the stage basically to Burak. Maybe you can talk about API 3 and also our decision why we are using Aragon.
Yeah, maybe I can just do a not so boring for our regular users take on API 3.
Yeah.
I mean, let me explain why we are building what we are building. So essentially, back when we started working with oracles, we looked into the problem and concluded that when you need to use an oracle, you actually need to use an API on the web in a smart contract. So that is, in most cases, what the oracle problem is. And then there is no good way of doing this, neither for the consumer of the data, nor for the API provider. And then no one is building anything towards this. This is not even seen as the main problem to be solved here. And then we were confused initially, but then the next step was coming up with a solution that would actually be, satisfactory to ourselves. And then from then on, we just went on to building it. So this is a more personal take. But if you want to think about it more generally, how does it affect a regular user or even anyone in the world, is that, so right now the problem with blockchains is that they're not really useful. And then we are mostly speculating on potential future use. So by useful, I mean essentially something like the internet, somewhere that you connect to do your day-to-day business. So this is essentially that there should be companies out there employing people. People should be doing some manual labor and providing services and data. And this should somehow go through the blockchain for blockchain to be, in general, capture any value. And then the value that it captures right now, it is mostly about the promise of this. And then this is why we are having these very violent cycles, like the bull and bear cycles, because there's not much behind the speculation that is being done. And then this is why we have all this volatility. And then, for this to be possible, for blockchain to be useful, it needs to be somehow integrated to actual businesses in the real world that are providing actual services. And then, essentially how businesses do digital integrations are through their APIs. So they provide their services, they get their data, you trigger some, for example, events. In most general terms, you can pretty much do anything through an API of a business if they're providing their services over the internet. So simply just integrating these APIs to smart contracts is supposed to essentially allow all of this value to be captured on blockchain. So this is you don't really need a more detailed plan, I think. There's no way that this will not create a lot of value.
Great.
Then also I was supposed to talk about why we're using Aragon. I mean, maybe I'm a bit old. I don't know. When I think of DAOs, I think of Aragon. Aragon is the DAO project. Even though when you look at it now, people are, for example, compound governance is pretty widely used right now. So the way we used Aragon is, I think, this is actually our second Aragon DAO, and we had a first version that we had to set up very quickly. And then Aragon was essentially the only solution that allowed us to do it over a weekend. And this was after trying some alternatives. And then it is extremely convenient to be able to set up a DAO without having to have something audited, for example. Like, and then as you said, like in blockchain, things need to happen very fast. And then this is like a very powerful tool. So in general, I'm more inclined towards over-engineering the more critical aspects of, for example, the project that I'm working on. So, for example, modularity is not always something that I like put much value in, because I want to over-optimize everything for our users. And essentially, the current version of the DAO is that, like, it works exactly the way that we want it to, and then it is pretty future-proof, and that it can be extendable. For example, as you said, like an optimistic governance scheme can be added to an existing DAO. But then, yeah, in general, as a framework, we could still implement the specific features that we wanted on top of this first version, but then still reuse a lot of the Aragon framework, which again helps with, like, we have to produce less code that needs to be tested and audited, and it's already quite battle tested. So, so essentially, I'm split. I guess modularity is like, it is an important thing, but then at the end of the day, you will have to custom build a part of the thing. So, or you will have to migrate to some other platform and then do everything from scratch. You probably wouldn't want to do that. So, this was essentially the path we took. So just migrating from a very generic Aragon template to a customized version that allows us to do pretty much everything. And I mean, I don't see any pressing reason why, for example, we should migrate from where we are right now.
Just to add to that, Burak, is really interesting what you brought up, to add some flavor from our side. I think what's been really interesting as well, like, you know, offering like a DAO platform is general purpose technology. It's really hard to get right because you need to accommodate so many different kind of personas and use cases and verticals. And we're just really trying to focus on getting the basics right. So customization is important when we talk to more advanced kind of protocols and projects. And then on the other hand, we have also kind of like the few friends trying to manage a few of the earnings in their play to earn realm. And it's more kind of the onboarding experience that is really important for them, and just having kind of a drag and drop almost feeling to it. So we know we can't cover it all. So we just want to make sure that we can add value where it's most important. But, you know, upgradability of the code, of course, in the space we're in, it's something that, if not managed or thought through from the beginning, is very costly after. So it's something that, you know, Aragon has put huge efforts into since day one, making sure that it's, yes, some of the code base was very heavy and so expensive in terms of gas fees, but in general, you have pretty strong security guarantees that if you need to be upgrading or customizing, you have still good freedom to do that. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for going into those topics. What I wanted to catch up upon is you threw around the term optimistic governance, and probably I'm just going to say 90% of the people listening in, or like basically a lot of people that will be listening to this, don't have any idea what that means. Do you want to elaborate on that and what the basically use case in DAOs is, or how it is basically used? And feel free to, anyone can take this and try to explain it.
I'm happy to take it. Yeah. So for anyone who's trying to Google optimistic governance, you're probably struggling to find an article on it. But I think it's a really exciting way to start managing DAOs going forwards, especially when we get into the fractal and the sub DAOs for quick decisions. This is where it's going to be really powerful. So DAOs are going to have functions such as salaries, which will happen recurringly, monthly. We'll have all these sort of recurring tasks, which users don't want to have to vote on. Obviously, if I'm participating in governance within a DAO, I don't need to vote on whether the core team gets paid every month. That's just, there's no point in that. So what optimistic governance allows is for people to put forward proposals, put forward decisions, and the default position is not this is incorrect, so we need to vote on it. The default position is this is correct until someone says otherwise. And when they say it's incorrect, it then gets disputed either through Aragon Court, or it could be disputed through a vote, if that makes sense. So that's it in a nutshell. It basically allows for quick decisions, and it stops sort of governance fatigue and voting fatigue for users, so that all their energy can be focused on the big decisions for the DAO going forward. Luca, do you want to expand on it?
No, that was a great definition. I think all the reasons why we're all here is trust. We always go back to that, right? And so how do you optimize for trust in certain circumstances, like Alex was outlining? It's really important that you kind of rely on some subliminal trust in your community to kind of accelerate on that decision-making process, because it's just kind of standard operations. Obviously, there's more kind of for larger communities or bigger decisions and kind of more involved discussions. It's not necessarily the best option, and we are completely aware of that. But that was not the problem that was set to solve.
There's one question, maybe Burak, is that something we can go into? Are the ideas, Alex? Because like we have, I don't want to say we have implemented it in that way, but we have somehow incorporated our payments differently. But
yeah, I mean, let me just talk about it generally. Because if I say yes, the next question will be when. when optimistic API free DAO. So I think, so one of the challenges that we face is we are trying to be like an actual DAO, unlike a lot of the DAOs out there, in that like the entire budgetary control is at the DAO's hands. And then, I mean, it is actually an existential risk. Like, you don't want people to not vote on seller payments, but you don't want to burn through your runway without actually delivering your thing either. So like it is, so I think in general, it's like one should be careful about like essentially because the designs that you choose ends up deciding what the governance results will be. And then, for example, if you are too optimistic about things, then like it may be a slippery slope is what I'm saying. So, and then, for example, right now we are on the opposite end. We are at the most conservative kind of DAO governance, where like everything gets voted on. And then how we deal with that is we just essentially do it in a more hierarchical way, in that a team makes a proposal to get paid to do their operations for the next 3 months. And then they have a budget that they propose to the DAO, saying that I need this amount to do this, this, and this. And then at the end of the 3 months, they just say that, like, I use the money for this, these are my outputs, and then I am asking for the next 3 months worth of grants. And then is that sustainable? Maybe even that is not sustainable in terms of like having people keeping voting on it. And then, so yeah, I think a very nice way of implementing optimistic governance is, so for example, because the problem with, or the question with optimistic governance is, so you will allow people to just make the proposal and then it passes if it doesn't get disputed.
Yeah.
But then who is allowed to make those proposals? Is
So with Govern, you can open it to the whole community. Anyone can make a proposal, or you segment it to specific wallets and specific users. So maybe an executive team makes proposals, which then the community can look at and contest if they think they're incorrect. Obviously, there's implications if they contest maliciously, because there is value attached to contesting, and then there is value loss if that contest goes against them. protections there. But I think where optimistic governance comes in and links into API 3 as well is using data for making decisions optimistically as well. And maybe we can go into that, Barak. That's probably another very exciting way of using optimistic governance.
Let me just explain, go over what I would consider as an option for API 3, for example. If we wanted to improve the current thing further in a more practical sense, what exactly would that look like? So one of the things so there's actually a question here, is delegation of voting power something that is encouraged in DAOs generally? So we definitely encourage delegation ourselves because especially if the alternative is the person not voting. If you're going to vote, of course, go ahead and vote. But if you're not going to be voting, definitely delegate to someone if you see that you would want to delegate to them. But then this essentially locks a lot of people out of voting directly, which may or may not be something that you want to do. But if you want to do that a bit more, I would say that essentially use some kind of off-chain voting platform where people vote if they have staked, but then some centralized party is keeping how many votes, how much vote each option received, for example. And then we have, let's say, an AIR node or as the Oracle node that pings that API, and then if the proposal got more than, for example, 50% yes by the community, it makes the proposal, which passes unless it is disputed. So this would allow the community to vote on the thing, and then it wouldn't cost anything. Even now, it costs a lot of gas to pass proposals for the few people that vote on it. So it would be quite cheap, and then you would essentially use the main governance mechanism as the dispute mechanism.
I just want to chip in here because I want to unpack that. There's a lot of points you've raised, Barak. So I want to decouple DAOs from governance just for a second for the simplicity of it. Governance is a very, very big topic that surrounds us everywhere we look. And DAOs are not necessarily kind of solving the entire governance spectrum, right? So if you think of the Daniel, our head of governance, is a very good way to think of this, where you kind of go through kind of sense making, and there's different stages that people need to go to. I think, every protocol and every project in this space has their own kind of governance process, governance model, governance way of thinking, how to interact with the community, how to bring votes into the next stage, how to bring sentiments into temperaments, and so on and so forth. And I don't think we have a precise science today to do that, or at least smart contracts are not really helpful on that front, managing it end to end. And so it's really interesting because I think we will still be for quite some time in this kind of hybrid world where we have to work with a lot of Web 2 tools. That's where a lot of the communities come together, express their sentiments, discuss. The forums. Discourse is probably one of the most used governance software in Web3 today, right? And Discord, of course, as well. We actually ran an experiment this summer to actually use emoji in Discord through an Oracle system in order to retrieve the voting and then execute on chain. But it's really experiments at this point. It's like what needs to happen needs to be a lot more. There should be a lot more security guarantees. There should be a lot more ways to provably demonstrate the results. And anyways, so I want to decouple for a second governance from DAOs, because DAOs surely are going into decentralizing governance and they are supporting that vision. Are they supporting the vision, or are they making that vision happen today to the full extent? We all doubt it, but we on a positive note, we all want it, right? And so, in order to go into that direction, we kind of need to all work together in the ecosystem to make DAOs be more interoperable across the board. And I'm just going to drop it out there because I know some people at Aave, for example, might be interested as well to build a new Twitter, a decentralized Twitter. And it's not just building that, it's building a lot of the missing infrastructure that should also be decentralized so that it could be also playing part in this rethought governance process. And then just to finish on this, you've mentioned delegated voting, which is obviously, I think you guys did an incredible job kind of building out your own delegation module, and we were kind of blown away. And we're actually still looking into that, because how do we bring that to more people that could benefit from it? Still exploring that, but delegation has its benefits and its limitation. We know that, and how we actually make delegation work with the current stack. Yes, we could offer a module, but then again, it's like giving a tool to the people and to decide for themselves how best to use it. We want to stay incredibly neutral in everything we do, and it's up to the people to decide to kind of use the right parameters and module. On delegation specifically, because this as I see here, it's also been a question from the community. I think delegation specifically needs to be really coupled well with subject matter expertise. So making sure that in this governance flow, you're able to bring up the people that actually have credible neutrality and an expression of thoughts in how certain things should be brought forward. And there's been a lot of conversations for them to be representful of others that want to delegate. It's something that almost sits outside of everything we're building, but it's so influential to everything we do.
Yeah. Just to also touch up on that part, because we had that in the very beginning when we launched everything, and people asked, like, who can I delegate to? And then this entire problem, I want to say, arose where are you going to put a drop-down menu there? Because if you're going to put the drop-down menu there, who puts the names in there that get in the drop-down menu? And it's just like you're creating all these points where somebody is influencing how your entire project is being governed just because they can decide who gets into the drop-down menu. So you just don't want to touch it at all. It's just like, when I thought about it, it's just a pure mess, because there's so many points of centralization that you're creating just by making it easy for people to delegate, basically.
And if I may, I just want to reinforce one thing here, is like, this is also in our Aragon manifesto, kind of the spirit of why we came together as Aragon, and the values we believe in is like once you go into to your point, once you go into decentralized governance, you start really seeing a lot of the still centralized pieces that are required to be decentralized for having that full stack view or full stack governance model, right? And so I'm looking at my computer, it was manufactured in a centralized way, my browser is centralized, and so many other kind of windows cascade until I see you guys. And like, I think we're still far from that, but I mean, that's a more of a visionary discussion.
All right. You have been basically, like, we have been talking about DAOs and basically how problematic it is to do certain things. So I'm just going to basically roll it back to the question that we had before this call. So, like, why haven't DAOs taken off completely yet? What is your take on that? And again, feel free for anyone to take this question and start elaborating on your part.
Let me just touch on a small thing. So this is like early 2018 when I'm doing research, but like on writing a white paper, and then I mean the main problem I think around writing white papers is finding material to cite, because like a lot of things are not written up formally. And then like the existing material is very limited. And then like essentially I wanted to talk about DAOs, and then essentially everything that I found was about the DAO hack, which like it has nothing to do with DAOs. It is essentially a matter of smart contract like development, like essentially just something that you should be wary about while developing smart contracts. And then like when you Google DAO, back in the day, this was like all that came up. So like it feels like it I guess slowed down things a bit, maybe, that big hack. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. I don't think that it's a fundamental thing, but then maybe because essentially, like, I sometimes ask myself, like, why don't we have a lot more DAOs yet? And then because the infrastructure was ready, and then the gas fees were a lot lower, but then like the thing happened, which resulted in a DAO winter, essentially. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you also touched on like 1 or 2 points. Or Luca, if you wanted to go ahead.
I think it's a really good point that Burak has raised. I just wanted to comment on that. I think like we've also heavily debated if DAOs should stop being called DAOs and they should be called smart groups. In a way, like we want to enable humans to collectively become more intelligent, and smart contracts are helping. So why not just call them smart groups? But you know, like we're less inclined to work on the branding and more on the technology, so we abandoned that idea. But it's obviously, like, especially kind of credit to our founders, Luis and Jorge, that have kind of put so much effort in building Aragon at a stage in history where everybody was saying, well, the DAO hack, that's never going to work, and just like being such visionary for thinking this through and building it against all kind of rumors and ideas around in the industry. It requires some real thought leadership on that. But yeah, I don't know if Alex had any ideas to add here.
Yeah, I was going to say probably the other topic to touch on is, I think, what all DAOs we find, I'm sure you guys find being part of DAOs now, is bringing people in and educating them around what is a DAO and what does working for a DAO actually mean. What does this mean for me coming in and working within this structure, which is a DAO? So there's a big education piece there, which I think we're still trying to bring people in, educate them of the benefits of working within an organization and a community, rather than for a corporation. So I think bringing people across into the space, and also I think creating really slick, easy to use interfaces where people can engage with DAOs. And I think we're just starting to get there now, where users who are not educated can actually use what we produce, if that makes sense, and actually can engage. And I think before there was a big barrier for uneducated users, and I think we're now getting there where people can come in and use easy to use interfaces and actually engage with communities and become part of them. And I think we're only just tipping over the edge now, from that perspective.
Yeah, just to add plus one to that, Alex. I think the one thing we're discussing a lot, and I guess it's probably felt also from you guys on the API tree side of thing, is that you're building a protocol, you have ethically aligned community that believes in the vision of the protocol, and then you're kind of trying to connect it right together. And that's where DAOs really play an important role, and the governance process that we've said that are still so reliant on Web2 tooling. But it's like, why are we building this with these people if we can't show them that they have complete power over it, or they can really take part in the decision-making process? And this is where DAOs are important. Just to finish on this, I think one thing that will probably we will explore more in the next maybe 3-5 years, it's the A in DAOs, which has been a little bit abandoned since inception. So this autonomy, it's still not clear to many people. I think a lot of people call them DOs instead of DAOs. So decentralized organization kind of sounds better, because you can actually do stuff together with your friends or with a large community. But the autonomy, it's this kind of inferred concept that it's just the smart contracts that are autonomous. But like, we want to get to a higher level of autonomy, and I don't think we're there yet.
Anybody, anything to add? Otherwise, I would be going to the last topic for today, which would be good. Sub-DAOs and fractal scaling. What is your opinion or take on it? What importance does it play for DAOs? I know that Burak wrote a heavy piece for API 3 on it, so maybe if you guys want to start, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure Burak has his take on sub-DAOs.
Yeah, actually, I can just tie it into the previous question. I think one of the reasons. So in general, I think when there is a problem, and then there is a single or a few solutions out there to solve that problem, then those solutions end up getting used. So for example, I'm obviously referring to our own solution, like this is a problem out there, a very critical problem with a single solution, which is why like I'm optimistic. But then in the same way, DAOs weren't really used because they are a tool that is good for something that people weren't really trying to do. And then that is, from our perspective, we have a very operational side in that we have very heavy business development operations and integration operations. And then we need to do this in a decentralized way for the resulting product to be called actually decentralized versus an Oracle that is like, it has a lot of nodes, but the entire governance around that is completely centralized. And then is it really decentralized? Probably not. But then like, if you want to build this in a decentralized way, now you need to do like, for example, you need to employ a lot of people, but then do it in a decentralized way. That is, I think one, like this is not a problem that has been solved before. And then this is not a problem that has been really faced before either. Because like for which project did people try to do this? I'm not sure I can think of any. And then essentially the solution that we think is good for this are sub DAOs, in that the thing with DAOs is that like they tend to be pretty flat. And then a flat organization doesn't really scale well. And then like there are a lot of inefficiencies and like solidified power structures and all that stuff. So you have to somehow find a new way to scale up. So for example, we are on Ethereum mainnet, and then we want to serve on Polygon. So like, how do you do that? So one problem is any governance decision that you take on Ethereum mainnet, like you cannot enact it on Polygon without trusting some kind of bridge infrastructure, which doesn't exist yet. Like you can only bridge tokens somehow reliably. And then like there is no way to bridge governance yet. And then even if you did, like, do you really want to hire a Polygon team under API 3 to work on it? And then like for how many more chains will you be able to do that? And then this is only for chains. You will have to do this for all the dApps. And then there are all these API providers, hundreds and thousands of them. And then how are you going to reach out to all of them by hiring larger and larger teams under a single DAO? This will probably not work. And then, yeah, I think this is essentially why. So in most cases, people use DAOs as a sort of a security mechanism. So there is something that needs to be decided. If a centralized party decides on it, it will not be secure. Therefore, we need a DAO. And then the DAO acts as like a security mechanism that takes decentralized actions, but it doesn't really conduct decentralized operations. So this is essentially why we thought that we really needed a DAO, and then we needed to scale it with more DAOs, or even like a smaller scales of them. For example, right now we have a lot of multisigs living under the DAO. Like each multisig is a team. And then in some cases, it is not even a multisig. The team leader just says that this is my wallet, send me the funds so that I can distribute to my team members, because like the team is 2 people large. So what is the point of having like one of 2 multisig for the team? So yeah, so this is definitely something that we are expecting to happen if we, I think, ever become successful in scaling to the side that we want to scale to, in terms of both the data consumers and the API providers.
I'm gonna let Alex give his thoughts, but for me, again, you've touched on so many points that we discuss every day at Aragon. So it's beautiful. It's beautiful to hear, Burak. I think like like the one thing that is like in decision making science, there is the cost of coordination, and we don't have good tooling to understand the hidden costs of there's an assumption that decentralizing everything as fast as possible is going to make it more efficient. Efficiency of the system is not necessarily tied to decentralization. And this does not mean that if it's centralized, it's better. So it's complex, right? And I think that's what you're hinting to, that there's this complexity science and how we actually do scaling horizontally. And this is the big question, because we're converging a lot of topics here. And the extra topic of all this is culture. We also all have our own community cultures, right? Like, I guess the community, the API tree community has their kind of social identifiers and their way kind of to relate to one another, and the mission they bring forward, the principles and the ethos and the mantra and all those things. And those don't necessarily transact easily on the blockchain, right? But they yet do define a lot of enthusiasm and the sentiment and emotions needed that go into the voting processes, and so are a big influencing factor in the decisions we take. So it's still unresolved. But in this model of kind of ability to execute and completeness of vision, we are probably better at completing the vision for now for DAOs than actually able to execute on what is needed. But I'm just going to end with this, which is the opportunity for DAOs today, and this is thanks to blockchain, and the opportunity for governance, today, is that we can experiment fast with large communities. And this is unprecedented. And I'm just making this like a bigger narrative than the one we are referring to, which is like in the past, if a government wasn't working, you had to wait maybe 50 years to change it. Today, you can really bring a lot of this. There's cat models in Python. There's a lot of things that you can do to kind of break governance models down into something manageable. You can experiment with them with token-gated communities, with tokenized incentives, and so on and so forth. And then you can have systems that input-output give you some sort of learnings of running A/B tests on governance models. And I don't think we've even started to scratch the surface on that. And it's going to be really exciting to see, because that's going to be a kind of the kernel of DAOs to tomorrow. But we're still far from that.
And just to build on what Lucas said on that point of, we're just sort of getting to that point where we can now iterate extremely quickly. Aragon going on Polygon means you can now deploy a DAO for 10 cents. So these things can be made, tested, destroyed, ripped up, and then create a new one. There's no the cost associated with them has gone down so dramatically. It makes such a huge difference just from that iteration perspective. So that's really exciting. But I second everything that Burak and Luca have already said. I don't think I could add much more.
Yeah, now just maybe reinforcing the USPs, that's something important, because I think that was your initial question, Ugo, or the one before that we had. What are the reasons that we're still seeing kind of this limited adoption of DAOs? And in a way, it's really kind of the modularity aspect and kind of the ease of use that we've discussed. But what to Alex's point is kind of cost. That's one thing we did really good this year, apart from some product launches that really went well, is kind of to start going multi-chain, and with allowing Aragon client DAOs to now be on Polygon. You can have a DAO for 10 cents instead of $500 on Ethereum. And we are big, endorsers of Ethereum. Let's get it right from the start. But at the same time, reducing costs to that point 20,000 times or something, it opens up scenarios we didn't even think of. So yeah, that's really exciting as well.
Do we have any other points, Burak or somebody else? Because otherwise, I'm gonna just pretty much close it. For the questions that everybody asked, there's some questions that are very API3 specific, and I didn't want to go into them because we're mostly talking about DAOs and Aragon and API3. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop into our Discord or Telegram and ask us there. We're more than happy to answer you anytime. And there's one more little thing that I wanted to bring to your attention. We have launched one of our first community initiatives where it's like a small design contest. Check out our post about it and our forum. You can get active, win some API3 rewards. And this is basically the beginning of a series where we're trying to create more community engagement, give you the opportunity to chime in and just basically contribute however you may want to contribute. And final words, I wanted to thank Alex and Luca for joining, and obviously Burak for taking the time again. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how everything develops.
Thanks a lot, guys, for having us. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This was great.
Thanks.
Thanks. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.